Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Saturday, July 6th. Before we get into the play of the day, we'll quickly recap what happened yesterday, and what a very thorough recap it will be because of all the craziness that happened, specifically in the NBA in the last, I'd say, I don't know what, like 16 hours or so. For starters, play of the day. So we had the Knicks -3. They closed at -4.5. They were up 20 in the first half, then went down 15 in the third, then we're down 6 with 8 minutes to go, and then we had an earthquake. And then they didn't resume the game. The games got postponed, as they should have been, because of the fact that it's an exhibition game that nobody should care about. And we got a push because of the fact that they didn't play the required 43 minutes, which is the standard for pretty much every sports book around. They played a solid 40. So it didn't even reach there. So if you look at it and you say we got lucky, that is somewhat true. However, if you also imagine that the Knicks were up 30 at the time of the incident, or they didn't choke away their lead, then the same thing would have happened. So under no circumstance would we have actually been able to win this bet, as an earthquake happened halfway through the fourth quarter, and they ended up having to call the game early. So that was something very interesting there. Yeah, how's it going, Omar? I'm actually going to go into that fight as well. So that was play of the day. Didn't count and ended up getting pushed. So I'm going to mark that as a push or a no contest on my personal record. Other than that, then you were dropped a couple of bombshells at 2:30 in the morning in pure Kawhi Leonard fashion, saying that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George will be going to the Clippers. So the Staples Center will be the official place of just, of pure hype in the NBA season, as you will be having LeBron, Anthony Davis on one side, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the other side. Clippers going all in, balls to the wall, trading 5 first-round picks and Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George to create a borderline super team. Overall, I think that's one of the best defensive backcourts I've ever seen, with Beverly, Paul George, and Leonard, and they should be the favorites to win the NBA Finals. I personally expect to see the Clippers and the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and I think that whoever comes out of the East is pretty much just dead meat once they end up reaching the finals. But overall, the Eastern Conference has opened up. NBA's finally has some parity in it for the first time in roughly 40 years. Now, that's an exaggeration. For the first time in like 10 years, it's felt like 40 years, where you actually have, I'd say, like 5 or 6 teams that actually have a serious chance of competing. So I'm really happy about that. But overall, that's enough background information. Time to dive into the play of the day. And some books will not allow this because it is a UFC parlay, as UFC 239 is going to be the main event for tonight. And there are 3 main matches that we are going to be talking about, and those will be parlayed for the play of the day. So we're going to be parlaying the John Jones match, the Amanda Nunes match, and the Ben Askren match. And those are available for 1 unit to win 1.06 units and a 3-pick on Bovada. You can shop around, try to find better lines. But to be honest, I would probably use 5 dimes for this, but 5 dimes was down. It actually is back up now, so I'll actually see if that line is any better. But regardless, the play of the day will be a 3-pick parlay on some of the UFC fights that are going to be going on tonight. So with that being said, we're going to dive right into it with the first match, and that's going to be between Ben Askren and Jorge Masvidal. In terms of this fight, it is only 3 rounds, so keep that in mind, as it's more than likely that you will see a decision. I found out the lines are the exact same on 5 dimes, so it's still 1 to win 1.06, which is available at Bovada, and that will be the line that we are using. So the Askren match fight itself against Masvidal. Masvidal is a very intimidating fighter. He likes to knock people out, but as a whole, I definitely think that a 3-round contest definitely favors Askren, who likes to wrestle, likes to take it to the ground. I think Askren's going to win this fight in a decision. I think Masvidal's got a lot of knockout power. I don't think he really brings much else to the table. And I think Askren, although he has the ability to punch people, with some power, he definitely prefers to keep this fight on the ground. And I think he's going to try to neutralize Masvidal by trying to keep him safe from any knockout blows. So I think he's honestly going to sit on him for about 3 rounds, kind of like what Khabib has done to some of the other fighters like Al Quinta and some of the other people. I think Askren's a superior wrestler. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, and I think he will show off that prowess against a knockout artist like Masvidal, and I think that he will win a 3-round decision, as he will outpoint Masvidal on the ground and simply will just sit on him and try to use transitions to keep Masvidal on his back. So I think Askren should win this in a decision. Moving on, you have Nunes versus Holly Holm. I'm not really going to spend much time handicapping this one. I think Nunes is just going to kill her. I know conceptually Holly Holm is a big name. Now she has a lot of fame after her knockout of Ronda Rousey a couple of years ago, as well as just her status amongst women's at UFC. But overall, Nunes, in my opinion, I think is the best pound for pound fighter out of all women in the UFC, especially since Cyborg is no longer under contract. Cyborg did lose to Nunes in her last fight. You can't argue that was because of the weight class issue, but at the same point, it doesn't matter. Nunes smacked her in about 45 seconds. It was 51 seconds. If you knock out Cyborg in 51 seconds, I think you can handle Holly Holm. I agree that Holmes has dangerous kicks, but that's really all Holmes has to the table is her kicks. And I think I just think that Nunes is just an absolute monster. And I think that she is by far the best female fighter in the UFC. Don't get me wrong, Holmes is a very good fighter, but if you look at how Nunes has been performing lately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She's won 8 straight fights, and if you look at who she's beaten Cyborg in a first round. She's beaten Shevchenko in the UFC twice. So Shevchenko is probably the third best fighter out of women in the UFC, and Cyborg was probably the second best fighter, if not the best fighter, before her contract expired. And Nunes beat both of them a combined 3 times. So for me, I personally think that Holm is outclassed here. I think Nunes has too much power in her fists. I think she also has some ability to take it to the ground. Holm is a very solid fighter, but as Omar points out, she has a very good kick game, and she can throw some punches. But overall, Holm is pretty one-dimensional, and she's going to try to keep Nunes at bay, try to keep her distance. I don't think it's going to work. I think Nunes is too powerful. I think Nunes is too strong. And I think Nunes will dominate, and I think Nunes will win by knockout at some point, probably in the second or third round for me. I don't see this going to a decision. I think it could go to a decision, but realistically, I think Nunes is just going to obliterate her, kind of like what you did with Cyborg. And for that reason, I'm going to be taking Nunes there on the money line. Moving on, you have Jon Jones versus Diego Santos. I don't really think I need to introduce Jon Jones, who's probably the pound for pound the greatest fighter in the history of the UFC. I know there's been some steroid issues. I know there's been some cocaine issues. I get it. But at the same point, Jon Jones is by far the greatest fighter the UFC has ever seen. And the question you have to ask is if Thiago Santos has the capability of pulling off arguably the biggest upset in UFC history. And for me, I think he's got the knockout potential because he's won 15 of his 21 wins by knockout, with 5 coming by decision. But realistically, Jon Jones, I just think, is too well-rounded of a fighter. He's got a better ground game than Santos. I think he's got a better stand-up game than Santos. Jones is 24-1 with the one coming from a disqualification from a long time ago, back in 2009, which I personally think is absurd because he was dominating that fight. Either or, he's the best fighter the UFC has ever seen. However, 10 of his wins have come from knockout, 6 by submission, 8 by decision. He's the most well-rounded UFC fighter I've ever seen. I think he's the best UFC fighter I've ever seen. And overall, I think that Santos is kind of a one-trick pony in the sense that he has to win by knockout. I think Jones will use his long 80-plus inch reach, use his leg kick, use his jab to keep his distance with Santos. And I think you're going to see a relatively similar style to what he did against Anthony Smith and against Olivier St. Preux and against Cormier the first time they fought. I personally, as well as Gustafsson, I think you're just going to see Jones try to keep his distance, try to tire out Santos, and I think he's going to try to outpoint him. So although people keep projecting this is going to be a very fast fight between the two of them with Jones and Santos, I would not be surprised to see both fighters fight relatively conservatively due to fear of the other's knockout potential. Plus, Jones, I think, can take it to the ground and eat up some precious time. In terms of where value is in this fight, I'd lean to the over 2.5 rounds. I really think this is going to a decision. I think Jones will win handily. So with that being said, I'm going to put Jones on the money line here. But if you want something that's a little bit, for more value purpose, that's not as safe, but there's definitely more reward, I'd lean to the over 2.5 rounds between Jon Jones and Thiago Santos, as I think that this fight will probably end up going to at least the 4th round before a potential late knockout, which I personally don't see coming. So the UFC play of the day for Saturday, July 6th will be a 3-pick on the 3 favorites in the 3 main fights of Ben Askren, Amanda Nunes, and Jon Jones. And that is available for 1 unit at 1 point for plus 106. So that will be the play of the day for the UFC. In terms of some of the baseball leans, I know a decent amount of the games are going to be starting now. Truth be told, didn't really like much of the baseball card, but I will still give out my leans I'll give out my leans for the game starting at 7, because by the time you see the leans for the 4 o'clock games, it'll already be too late. So I'm just going to skip those. In terms of the 7 o'clock games, I lean to the Phillies here. Mets bullpen blew it again last night. Edwin Diaz, what a tremendous bullpen pitcher, pitching less than 1 inning again, giving up 4 runs. What an absolute legend. Lean to the Phillies there. The Phillies just own the Mets bullpen. I'm not even going to bother. Moving on, you have the Astros versus the Angels. I have to lean to the Angels for pure value. I know Cole was great last month. Houston's a minus 222 favorite. Angels have played good ball. I know they lost their play of the day 2 days ago, but they did win yesterday. I like the way they've been playing. Lean to the Angels there. Moving on, you have the Cubs versus the White Sox. Lean to the White Sox here with Giolito on the mound. He got roughed up in his last start against the Cubs. I think he'll bounce back nicely. Meanwhile, the Cubs are still one of the worst road teams in all of baseball. I think they'll continue struggling. I think that there's a reason why the White Sox are only a small dog here, so I will lean to the White Sox there. Moving on, you have the Giants versus the Cardinals. I'll lean to the Cardinals here. Bumgarner's on the mound. Does that mean a lot? Not really. I know he's been very solid this year statistically, but his win-to-loss ratio is terrible, as Bumgarner is currently 5-7 this season, mostly because of the fact the Giants can't provide him any run support. And I do like the way the Cardinals offense did perform yesterday, as they had 9 runs by roughly the 7th or 8th inning. So I like the way they played. Lean to the Cardinals there. Moving on, you have the Rockies versus the Diamondbacks with Gray versus Ray. I'd lean to the over 8 here. Money's coming on the under. Truth be told, I don't care. It's in Arizona, so you know the conditions will be fine based on the fact that it's a retractable dome in there. Other than that, Gray's been pretty solid lately. Ray's been inconsistent. I know that Peralta for the Diamondbacks is on the IL, but I still like their lineup. I still like Colorado's lineup, and Ray struggled against the Rockies in his last time facing them, so I will lean to the over there. And the last game, you have the A's versus the Mariners. I'll lean to the A's, but I'll lean to the first 5 on the Mariners here. Bassett has been pretty solid this season, but he did struggle in his last start against the Mariners, where Gonzalez has fantastic numbers against the A's in his career, but I hate the Mariners bullpen. So for me, I'll lean to the Mariners' first 5 money line at a plus price, and I'll lean to the Oakland on the full game, as I expect Oakland to continue rolling. How's it going, Terry? Thanks for joining us. Before we conclude today's video, quick reminder of our sponsor, PointsBet, online sportsbook in New Jersey. A couple of great deals for you, up to 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. So if you end up betting on any of these UFC fights tonight and end up losing, you get your money back and don't have to worry about remaking your bankroll, which is definitely a great promo that I wish more books would use. But if you're just joining us, the play of the day will be a 3-pick parlay on UFC with John Jones, Amanda Nunes, and Ben Askren all on the money line, and that is available at Bovada for 1 unit to win, for 1 unit at plus 106. So with that being said, that's going to do for this installment of Scott Selections here for Saturday, July 6th. Good luck to all of you and your expected bets today. Bye, everyone.